you believe it if I told you that one of the participants in this week's Republican debate is a good friend of the program, good friend of ours, and we're behind his work 100%? Well, it's absolutely true. Joining us now is Kai Newkirk. Kai is the co-founder of 99 Rise, a diverse team of activists working in the fields of student labor, immigration rights, anti-war, racial and economic justice, everything more or less that we believe in. 99 Rise is rising up to reform our corrupt electoral system. And Kai did, in fact, appear in the Republican debate this week. We have a clip of it. Let's take a listen.
Are Americans safer with dictators running the world in the Middle East?
In my opinion.
Go ahead, Mr. Trump.
In my opinion, we've spent $4 trillion trying to topple various people that, frankly, if they were there and if we could have spent that $4 trillion in the United States to fix our...
Okay, so that was Kai Newkirk in the background, not getting a full hearing from the audience there, I would say. And what he was saying was the American people deserve free and fair elections, not billionaire auctions. He joins us now. Kai, thanks for coming on the show.
Great to be back with you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, and thanks for injecting a moment of truth into that bizarre spectacle that was the GOP debate. Once again, you've done this at the Supreme Court, now at the GOP debate. Let's start out with this. How was it different? How did it feel different to stand up here rather than at the Supreme Court?
Sure. Well, it was very different. The biggest challenge was getting in. It's very difficult to get a ticket. And it felt like this kind of Ocean's 11 operation there at the Venetian Hotel and Casino in Vegas, trying to find a way to get in. I kind of doubted it right up to the end that we're going to be able to get that I'd be able to get a ticket that would get me in. But I just kept trying, and kindness of strangers, serendipity, and persistence. Made it happen. And part of, in the back of my mind, there was always a part of me that was okay with not getting in because, there's some intense kind of stage fright around, interrupting something like that. But I just knew that it would be a big step for our movement, that it would really lift up these issues in a huge way, and that, I couldn't let my fear stop me. So even though it was kind of dragging, at me, I just kept pushing, and then, was just really grateful when I got the opportunity. Did a quick shot of whiskey, took a sip of water, and got in there. And as soon as I got inside, I saw, I had no idea what the theater would be like, but I could tell that it was going to be easy to be, heard enough in the space that it would kind of disrupt it, and then I had to wait to be seated, for a commercial break. Then once I did, I didn't wait very long. I just waited for the next question to Trump. The atmosphere is very different from the Supreme Court there. It's so quiet. There's this intense kind of deferential feeling that is the thing you have to kind of overcome to speak, is the sense that this is the space where you are really just supposed to be quiet and, defer to these very important officials. In the debate, people are laughing and clapping and booing and stuff like that. So it's a very different feel, kind of like this entertainment event. So it's more just, being committed to interrupt and disrupt it, on that national stage. But, this is such an important fight that, once I got in there, I knew I had to see it through, and went pretty quickly. But even though you couldn't hear it as much on the broadcast, we knew that the fact that it happened, right, would be a big enough story, that as long as we had a record of what I actually said, which I got on a video that you could play that at some point. The audio comes through very clearly. So, on social media and everything, and for the stories, it came out very clearly what I said, which was the American people deserve free and fair elections, not billionaire auctions. Every candidate on this stage is either a fascist billionaire or has been bought by billionaire candidates. I meant to say has been bought by billionaires, but I flubbed that part in the heat of the moment. Then overturned Citizens United. We demand an equal voice in our democracy, equal voice regardless of wealth, and that was when they grabbed me and took me out.
Awesome. First of all, nicely done. Secondly, did you get really hostile reactions from the rest of the audience?
Well, it happened very quickly. There started to be some booing, which I think you can hear there as I continued, right? But the people around me were just kind of shell-shocked, right? And I think the folks that grabbed me were not actually security or something. I think they were just people that were in there and felt like they had to take the responsibility. But they weren't particularly rough with me. As soon as they sort of had me, were pulling me out, I said, as you can hear in the video, I said, you got me. I wanted to put them at ease. So I said, God bless you all, just to, try to de-escalate and, let them know I meant no harm. And then, I was walking down the stairs giving a quote to somebody, and then I was questioned by security, et cetera. But, one of the people that actually grabbed me reached out on Twitter, give thanks for Twitter, and found me and said, thanks for not, kind of giving me a hard time or headbutting or something funny like that, but that he respected, the kind of, free speech, that I was exercising. He didn't agree on everything. He agreed with transparency around money. So to me, that's heartening because I think, that we can build common ground across, a huge swath of America around this issue. The vast majority of Republicans are with us on the fact that there's, our elections shouldn't be bought by billionaires and big money has too much power. And so even in the heart of that, party, even though the candidates are not with us, a lot of people at the base are, even those who, took action to try to get me out of there. So it's very different, atmosphere than like a Trump rally or something like that. It's very hard to get in there. It's like donors and campaign operatives and stuff like that.
And a more fanatical audience. I love the fact that you even had one of the people who escorted you out saying that he supported you on these issues of, I agree. I mean, I think there's so much unanimity among the American people on the issue of overturning Citizens United, getting money out of politics, that I think it's great to bring attention to that issue. And I think it's great that in your tweeting about this, after this happened and you tweeted about it, that's what you said, it's time to call for free and fair elections, not billionaire auctions. And of course, by going to Sheldon Adelson's home turf of Las Vegas, the ones who weren't billionaires themselves, which is basically the non-Trump candidates, were auctioning themselves off to Adelson and his cronies and whoever else might be watching. There is unanimity around that, and there is, and you also mentioned in your tweeting Democracy Spring, which I want to get to in a second. But before we do, one of the funny things about all of this, and I wanted to get your thought on it, is that the statement that Trump was beginning to make when you spoke up, when he finally finished it, it was pretty much the only reasonable thing that was said all evening. Did you pick up on that? Or did you get a chance to finally
I didn't.
read?
Even in the moment, I was just like, I heard Wolf Blitzer say, "And for you, Mr. Trump," and I was like, okay, here we go, And so then I was just focused on what I was doing, and obviously I didn't hear the rest of what Trump said, and I haven't actually gone back to listen to the full question, but I'd be happy to respond to it if you can tell me what it was.
Yeah, here's what he said, Kai. We're talking to Kai Newkirk of 99 Rise, who spoke out and disrupted the GOP Republican debate this week. Here's what Trump said. We have spent $4 trillion trying to topple various people that, frankly, if we could have spent that $4 trillion in the United States to fix our roads, our bridges, and all the other problems, our airports and all of the other problems we have, we would have been a lot better off. I can tell you that right now. We've done a tremendous disservice not only to the Middle East, we've done a tremendous disservice to humanity. The people that have been killed, the people that have been wiped away, and for what? It's not like we had victory. It's a mess. The Middle East is totally destabilized, a total and complete mess. I mean, it's like your sanity rubbed off on one of the candidates for a minute.
Yeah, well, Trump is a really interesting case, but I think the nugget of truth there, is that in terms of the military interventions, in Iraq and Afghanistan, especially Iraq and beyond, that, there have been these devastating consequences, in Iraq, hundreds of thousands of people, documented that have died since our invasion there, and that's, created conditions that led to ISIS. And that's, I think we have to make a clear distinction. That's very different from supporting, nonviolent people's movements, that were rising up around the Arab Spring. It was right to back, the folks in Egypt and Syria, Tunisia, et cetera, and say that the United States stands with them and isn't going to support those dictators. It's a very different thing to send in, troops or, bombers to try to take people out like we did in Iraq. And I think that, we have to be clear about that. But, when he says that we should be investing at home, there's no doubt about that. And I think Trump is this really, it's a terrifying, abomination of a political character in terms of what he's become in this campaign. But there are times when he speaks kind of, in this blunt way and points to truth. And I think, a lot of people that are supporting him are in a place where they're really feeling, I think, a desperation and pain in this country, especially white working class folks who feel like, and middle class folks who feel like, declining opportunities in their lives and a political system that has abandoned them. And they're right about that in the sense that our government is not representing the everyday people. It's representing big money special interest corporations, ideological billionaires who can buy our elections and candidates, with these unlimited contributions that should be illegal. But the problem is that, they're being mobilized to see a solution and not electing somebody who wasn't bought by a billionaire, but is a billionaire themselves, right, and still represent those interests, and is deflecting their anger and dissatisfaction instead of at a rigged political and economic system that is hurting the vast majority in our country, pointing that anger at immigrants, at Latinos, at Muslims.
Right, absolutely.
At black folks, and that is what we have to draw a really hard line. And
right.
the point I was making and the action was around, the fact that we need to save our democracy, and that's not being spoken to in these debates and by these candidates. But I wanted to be clear in calling Trump not just a billionaire, but a fascist billionaire, because we have to draw a line in the sand and make clear that, the direction that he has gone in has crossed some red lines that just should be absolutely unacceptable in our politics. He shouldn't have been able to be on that stage after he called for banning Muslims from the country and, mass deportations of aspiring Americans.
Right. No, I couldn't agree more. I thought it was interesting that was the only reasonable comment of the night. But Trump is not the first racist demagogue in history to occasionally say reasonable things while he's giving red meat to his followers with hate and totalitarian ideas. So, yeah, don't get me wrong. I feel as strongly negative about Trump as you do. But let's talk, in the couple minutes we have left, let's talk a little bit about Democracy Spring, which is something you've been promoting as a response to all of this. Tell us a little bit about it.
Absolutely. Well, we're in a crisis in our country, in which our government isn't representing everyday people, and our democracy has been deeply hijacked. And unless we do something to solve that, we're not going to be able to make the fundamental progress that we need to on so many issues, from climate change to historic economic inequality, mass incarceration, and down the line. And we need to do something that's going to change the game on that. And that's the vision for Democracy Spring, is organizing one of the largest civil disobedience actions in a generation in our country. Next April in Washington, D.C., mass sit-ins at the U.S. Capitol demanding that Congress take action to end this corruption and ensure that our elections are free and fair, give everyone an equal voice. It's going to start with a march from the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia as a place that's symbolic of our aspirations to democracy as a country, and go over 10 days, 140 miles to D.C., and we'll make our demand to Congress when we start the march and make it clear that if they haven't met it by the time that we get there, they need to be prepared to send people to jail day after day for at least 6 days, from the 11th of April through the 16th, where we'll be sitting in en masse at the Capitol or on the grounds, and in the spirit of the civil rights movement, putting our body and our liberty on the line, at least for that period of time, to insist that something has to be done about that. And we're going to make a confrontation there nonviolently that is going to force the country to pay attention to this issue, the media and Congress to respond. And they're either going to have to do the right thing or make this historic demonstration of the popular will for change in one of the largest civil disobedience actions in a generation that sends a message to the country that we need a new Congress that will take action to save our democracy. So we want to create a moment like Occupy Wall Street, like the Selma campaign and the Civil Rights Movement, that shifts the course of history and the political climate around this issue and impacts this election and opens the door to reform in 2017. We want everyone who's listening who agrees with us on this issue to see that this can be the moment. This can be the time when we really change the game on this fight.
Where can people go to get more information on that?
DemocracySpring.org. There's over 1,400 people that have already pledged to risk arrest. Okay, and we've just put this out there. And there are public figures that have joined us. Mark Ruffalo, the actor, Lawrence Lessig, Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks, Ben Cohen from Ben & Jerry's, Zephyr Teachout, Medea Benjamin, Umi Sela from the Dream Defenders, on and on. And that list is growing. Over 60 organizations that are on board. 99 Rise and Avaz convened it. Many other groups have joined, including Working Families Party and United We Dream, Progressive Change Campaign Committee. So we're building something really powerful here. And we want to create an opportunity for everybody who's so hungry for there to be some change, especially in this dark time, when Trump is like dominating the headlines. We want to have a hopeful vision. And we wanted to dream big and think of something that we could do that would really shift the entire political climate in this country around this fundamental issue of political equality. That if we can win a democracy that really works for us all and isn't bought by big money and cutting out, everyday voters, that we can open the door to profound and deep progressive change that can meet the challenges that we face.
Okay, well, we got to leave it there, but democracyspring.org, Kai Newkirk, 99 Rise, disruptor of the GOP debate. As always, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you so much, RJ.
You too.